film had 2 screenings to a sellout audience like this, where we had 2 question and answers as well. And before that, the week before, we were in Busan, where we had 4 screenings to a sellout audience as well, of film buffs and people who really support Asian cinema. So I thank you all for coming here, because I think you all also support Asian cinema. I'll throw the floor open to you all. If you want to ask any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes.
Yeah. How closely did you work with Ken, the writer, and what came out of your collaboration? Changes in the script?
I think, well, maybe Ken should answer that. But I mean, from my point of view, I work very, very closely with Ken. I have worked with writers over the past 20 years in my work in the theatre. I've always enjoyed the process of working with writers. I've always respected their work, right up to the point that, you know, if I change a single word in the script, Ken will attest to that, I will call Ken up and say, Ken, can I change this word? Because I know that writers, especially writers like Ken, agonize about every single word. So every single word he has thought about. So I do that. Regarding the script, regarding the story, I came up with the original idea for the film, but Ken came up with the murder mystery structure, because I didn't have a structure for the film. I knew what I wanted to say in the film. I knew what the film was going to be about, but Ken came up with a murder mystery structure in order to make the plot move. So that was Ken. So we worked very, very closely together. But having said that, we really only had a 3-hour meeting. We met once over a drink in my apartment, over a mahjong paper, and we only met for 3 hours. After that, I never saw Ken again, and he left for America. Like about 2 weeks after we met, he left for America. And 4 weeks after he left for America, the first draft of the script came, of the film, and it was his first script that he ever wrote. So the answer to your question is we only worked for 3 hours. Maybe. You want to say anything to that?
Not really.
Okay. But we have a lovely relationship, and even though I had only met Ken up to the time we started working together for 6 months before that, so we didn't really know each other as friends, but somehow all the things that we wanted to say as filmmakers, we both wanted to say the same things. So somehow it was serendipity that we met, and we had the same things that we wanted to say. Yeah, because I've worked with writers from all over the world, including a collaboration with a New York writer when I was contracted with Miramax and living in New York in 2001 and 2. I came up with a story for a film which Mr. Weinstein liked, so he found me a writer which we chose together, and it was a pleasant collaboration. But at the end of the day, the writer didn't really want to write what I wanted to say. So somehow or other, although it was a great concept for a film, the script never really materialized into a film. Yeah, so it is difficult to work with directors and writers, and commissioning work is a very, very sensitive issue. Yeah, that doesn't always work. Yeah.
Glenn?
Yeah.
Did the story start out? Did the idea start out as a stage show, or you planned it as a movie or in the beginning?
No, it never started as a stage show. It was always meant to be set in a house like this. Maybe your question is maybe what you're saying is that it looks very theatrical.
Right.
I think that was a device that Ken and I decided to take on because you know, maybe you can explain this better. This thing about using the theatrical form.
I mean, we made a choice. I think to go with a style that is heightened and which is theatrical. I mean, there is nothing especially believable about what actually happens in the Blue Mansion. I mean, anecdotally, we have, you know, heard many outrageous stories told at funerals. But I mean, in terms of the film, I mean, it's all sort of bordering on a certain type of exaggeration. So we went with that fully. So everything from the way the film is shot, the lighting, you know, the dialogue, everything is a little bit hyper real. Yeah.
Artificial. We wanted to use this this thing which you know, when you go to the theatre, it's always artificial, right? You're asking the audience to suspend their disbelief and to come on this ride with you. But also this thing about alienation, which Bertolt Brecht uses. You know, it's not meant. You're not meant to feel for any of these characters. You're meant to actually be detached and be objective about it and make your own conclusions about what the film is about to you. You know, it's different from other Hollywood films which take you on this roller coaster journey, you know, and then you laugh and you cry with the lead character or the heroine or the hero. You know, it's a different way of doing things. This is more about objectivity and this layer of artifice. But by using that layer of artifice, I'm trying to say that, you know, take this film like a mirror. Use this film like a mirror. Yeah. Don't know if I take this bit.
What do you hope to say through this movie, and what do you hope to get out of it?
I think we're more concerned with what you get out of it. We wrote it, I think, to express a certain anxiety. An anxiety that perhaps the generation of the 60s and 70s feel more acutely than the current generation. A time when I think Singapore was not as dynamic as it is today, faced a lot of constraints culturally, politically, socially. So we wanted to reflect that. I mean, the patriarch is the patriarch of a household, and perhaps you might read it as of this community that we live in called Singapore. I mean, it's a country about Singapore families and Singapore society.
I was interviewed by the newspaper today with an article they were coming up with at the end of this week about the film industry in Singapore, and there was a quote by Joan Chen saying something about, you know, the Singapore film industry is very young and Singapore filmmakers are very young, and you know, we live in a fairy tale land where everything's clean and efficient and everything's perfect. Art doesn't come from, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but what she was trying to say is that art usually comes from
conflict
from
pain
conflict and pain, which we don't have in Singapore. She says we only have contentment here. And I disagreed with that, because I said that to an outsider, superficially, Singapore looks like a perfect example, a perfect city. You know, everyone wants to live here. But you just have to dig a little deeper, or you just have to look under the skin to really see the discontentment and unhappiness which I see all over me, all around me, from stories that I hear from my friends, my family, people I work with at Wild Rise, at Dream Academy in the theatre. You know, I don't see people who are happy. I don't see people who are smiling. You know, so I did sort of disagree with what you're saying, but I understood what you're saying. You know, art comes from discontent, and what I was trying to say, that I think, you know, there are a lot of stories in Singapore to be told. On a personal level, you know, the film is about stories, my personal story, whether it's stories from my loved ones, from my own family, or from my relatives, or stories of my friends. You know, because we live in a very, even though we're in 21st century Singapore, we do still live in a very patriarchal system. where Asian values are lauded